There's power in taking a photograph. There's power in being an artist.
It's the Phoenix Film Revival Podcast.
Okay, we have David Venezia here. Hopefully I pronounced that right, correct? Venezia?
Yes,
Okay.
you did. That's the proper way to pronounce it, not the Americanized way.
Like it. David Venezia is a friend of mine. Met him through Phoenix Film Revival. He'd come in and print. He recently moved from Phoenix up to Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'm excited to chat with him today. We have some interesting things to talk about. Obviously, a bunch of film stuff. David's been doing a ton of photography related things, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say. He recently moved, and when did you move?
Yeah, we moved up here back in May of last year. So right before the summer started, we decided to get out of Phoenix and move to Salt Lake City. Thankfully, my wife and I were able to come up here, kind of resettle, bought a house, which is cool. And yeah, I've done a lot of cool film things since. So it's really great to chat with you, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having me on today.
Definitely. So tell me, labs in Utah, what is there up there?
Yeah, well, what is great, just like in Phoenix, there's a really large film community here, and photography community in general, but very focused on film. So part of moving up here, I really didn't know anybody. So a great way to make friends, I guess, is to, start handing some film over to the labs here. So first one that I really had some experience with was the Find Lab. They're pretty popular. They do a lot of mail-in service. They do a lot of local services as well, but they are great, just like a one-stop shop for everything C41, black and white, E6, scanning, professional workflows. Great place, great folks.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Right when I got up here, I put in a big order of film from them. Wanted to stock up on slide film before the fall season, so got to meet some of the folks there. And only downside, they are a little far away from me. They're about 35, 40 miles south of Salt Lake. They're down in like the Lehigh, Provo area.
Okay.
So a little bit far to just drop off like one or two rolls, but great folks. And a few more of the local labs that I actually found here. One is Nichols Photo Lab. They're actually where I take most of my work to get processed.
Okay. There's
also Essential Photo. They specialize film processing, sales, but also a lot of consignment camera sales. More like a well-rounded camera shop.
Oh yeah.
Then there's Acme Camera as well. One more. Bunch of places up here, which is great.
That's definitely awesome.
And they deal in a lot of vintage equipment, a lot of rentals, lighting, et cetera, kind of in that realm. So great community up here, Dan.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's good. So you said your go-to is Nichols, correct?
Yeah. I really like them. I kind of shared the love when I first got here. There was another lab as well called Replicolor, but they actually just sold all of their film processing equipment to Essential Photo, which is cool. But
okay.
Yeah, kind of spread the love, wanted to see how the labs performed up here. Back when I was in Arizona, you've processed some of my film, mostly slide film, which we can talk about later.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, Tempe Camera, TCR Photo. A few more options up here. So I kind of wanted to, like I said, spread the love, see who did the best work. And Nichols Photo, fantastic.
Awesome.
They really knock it out of the park.
Yeah, you had mentioned like same day or like next day processing for some stuff over there. Was that was Nichols, right? Okay.
Yeah, they have a few large dip and dunk setups, so they can do volume at pretty rapid speed. Typically, if I'll drop some film off in the morning before I go to work, it'll be ready when I'm done for the day.
Oh, wow.
And that's not out of the ordinary for either black and white E6 or C41.
That's
Um,
awesome. Well,
now,
most places take a couple days down here.
yeah. Most places take a couple days, but I mean, these guys have been around for, gosh, I don't know, 30, 40 years. So um, it's a great place, and they really have it down. So, and they'll do pretty much anything. Push, pull. I've had them process everything from 110 to 8x10, and
That's amazing.
with the same excellent service each time. Their pricing's great, nice folks, and they also sell film too at a pretty good price.
Good. Well, that's good to
Yeah,
hear. We definitely need more of that, especially with film prices being as high as they are. You definitely want to get good results when you're shooting it. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's why folks really, um, having what you have, the lab in Arizona is so huge. There aren't that many labs in Phoenix, and by you offering that service of teaching folks how to, not only make prints, which is what I really like to do, but you're out there teaching folks how to process their own film, how
yep.
to, save some money, how to, uh, just bring everything a little more in house.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just thank you, Dan,
Yeah.
for offering that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's with the prices of film going up this year once again.
Mm-hmm.
The only other
Yep.
option is to cut back on cost in taking your film into a lab. Not always
Mm-hmm.
optimal, obviously, if you're trying to do certain things and you
Yep.
have limitations in your space. But saving money where you can is definitely worth it. Um, so
It
yeah,
is.
so
It is.
you mentioned a few different labs, which is awesome. And you have your go-to, which is good.
Yeah.
You had mentioned you have some community that you've connected with up there. So let's chat a little more on that. Um,
Oh,
how
yeah.
did you connect with the community up there?
For sure. Well, being that I really didn't know anybody in Salt Lake, had a few friends here, but no one in the photography community. It was kind of a welcome treat. When I first got here, the Find Lab was actually putting on some monthly photo walks, and very casual, no sales pitch or anything like that. It was just, hey, like, let's all hang out, go shoot some photos, make some friends, and that's really what it was. So I've been able to meet a few folks from the Find Lab, kind of become friends with them, and same with some of the other labs and kind of more photography oriented stores like Acme Camera. A very good friend of mine now, Justin. I'll plug his Instagram at the end of the show.
Yeah.
But just a great friend. I mean, kind of on like the same level of craziness down the rabbit hole of you and me.
Yeah.
So it was just really cool to be able to um, just meet folks in the community who work in the community who are into film, who love shooting photos. And I've even had a few of them over to my darkroom to take some workshops too. So uh, it's just been great, putting yourself out there. I mean, before the pandemic, I was super extroverted. You know, pandemic changes a few things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Uh, but it's been really nice to have a sort of similar vibe here that you've brought to the community in Phoenix. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's definitely good. I'm glad you're connecting with community. You had mentioned your dark room.
Oh yeah.
Tell me more. I've seen some stuff. I noticed you went on some photo walks with the Fine Lab connected, and then I know you had some stuff in the works to kind of build out your space. I know we sent up some pieces, or sent you some pieces to take up. But yeah, how's that going?
Yeah, well, Dan, it's been going great. One of the goals of getting this house, like right now, you see, I'm in my office. My wife has an office space right above me. She actually works from home, so it was important that she wanted a door for her office.
Yeah.
And I mean, I did too. It's nice to have your own space where you can actually see behind me. I've got over on my right is where I do all my DSLR scanning. I've kind of got a little nook set up for that. I've got a big filing cabinet where I keep a lot of storage in. You can't see it, but I've got actually just a dresser that I use to store all my cameras in. I have that many now.
Oh wow.
So uh, hopefully going to be paring down the fleet just a little bit soon to maybe get something super cool.
Nice.
In the future, but that's a problem for future David to worry about.
Yep.
So it's just nice having my office here. My wife also has a hobby that knows no bounds. She's into sewing, so
Cool.
we actually this house is big enough where she has her own separate sewing studio as well. Hobbies are super important. We don't have any kids yet. It's just a little 7-pound Yorkie, so we wanted to find a place that was like future proof.
Yeah.
To allow us to have space for our hobbies, which brings me to the dark room.
Yeah. You sent me a picture.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull that up and look at it.
Sure. Thank you. When we found this house out in the garage, which is a detached garage, is about a 12 by 12 foot framed out, somewhat insulated. This is now I found out because it's wintertime room. Thought there was more insulation there. There's not.
Oop.
It's very cold. Space heaters are my friend now.
I see that.
But yeah, when we moved here, this house really was just perfect and had a big space with the door out in the garage. It was framed in, with electricity. No running water, unfortunately. But I have over the last about 6 months or so since we've been here set up pretty much a full-fledged black and white darkroom space. There were a couple parting gifts that you sent me off with, some enlargers. There was a Bessler 23C that went my way, which was very
solid
thankful.
workhorse.
I'd actually printed with that one back in Phoenix Film Revival, which was cool. And so it was like a trustworthy, good enlarger. So thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
And then there's the big Omega D5500, which is a big 4x5 enlarger. Unfortunately, I have not gotten that to work yet, but TBD.
In due time.
I think, what was that? I'm sorry, Dan.
In due time. I'm sure you got
yes.
plenty of other enlargers to work with. So
plenty of other ones. Yeah. So I've got the Bessler 23C. I got the Omega that you sent me up with, the D5500. That can do up to 4x5. So that'll be cool once that's up and running. But since I've gotten here, I've picked up another Bessler 23C just so I can have two black and white enlargers going at the same time. And I've also got a Bessler 23C with the Dipro color head.
Excellent.
Shortly before I took off from Arizona, you taught me how to print color, how to do RA4 in the dark room.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was super cool. Thank you for that. That was quite a treat to learn and see.
Well, that took us like 4 hours to get the color right on that.
It did take us quite a long time the first time. Yeah,
a little bit of a challenge.
Temperature control is just so critical. With that, and that's actually why I haven't given that a go yet since I have got my darkroom set up. With it being in the garage, it's wild temperature fluctuations, and I know with the color chemistry, a degree can be all the difference in the world when you want to get accurate color prints.
Absolutely.
So that's been a barrier there. But I've just been focusing on black and white. So the long and the short of it is, I really like printing on fiber. I wanted to make sure that I could have a full archival workflow. So at least up to 16 by 20 inches currently, I can do a full fiber archival printing workflow, including I've got a heat press that you also set me up with to press the prints flat once they're dry. So it's really nice. Got a ton of paper. I'm stocked up. Chemistry's ready to go. I've got the darkroom pretty well organized. Let me see if I can show a photo here of it.
Yeah.
Tell you guys what I'm talking about. So, all right, Dan, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Awesome. So this is my darkroom. Over on the left side here is the dry side. We've got the 4 enlargers, the 2 Bussler 23Cs. Those get used the most often. I've got a big light table, which actually you also sent me up with. Haven't been able to get that working yet, but it's still just a nice place to use to set up. And then I've got the wet side over on the right here. So big sink that I was able to get from Acme Camera, actually.
Oh, awesome.
They take in a lot of donations from the community. They've been around for quite a while, pretty well known. So this was one of those things. It was right time, right place. Like, hey, I'm looking for a sink. Oh, we got what you need. We're actually looking to get rid of it. Can you please take it off our hands now for free? I was like, sure, I can do that.
Perfect. Can't beat free.
No, can't beat free. So yeah, it's just been really nice to have this set up here. All the prints, except for the really big one on the wall, these all have one issue or another. So that's why they're out here in the dark room, not on the nice wall in the basement. So it's always good to be able to look at and see your mistakes and be like, okay, yeah, I know why this print is on the wall, right, Dan?
Oh yeah. Yep. There's always
Yeah.
a little dust or a scratch or a mark that ends up in the print you thought would be the final print. And then you have to go through and make adjustments and reprint it. Yeah, it gives you something to look at while you're in there. Remind you of all the hard work that you're putting in to get it just right.
Yes, it does. Well, so this is kind of what's going on with my dark room here. Before I touch on kind of the workshops and some more of the community aspect, what have you been up to, Dan? I've been seeing a lot of cool stuff on Instagram. Can you kind of give me the lowdown?
Yeah. Oh man. I've been super busy in the lab. Stacy and I have been doing all sorts of workshops lately. We just had some workshops yesterday that went really well. We're doing some new stuff this year. We have a club that Stacy started. She's working with a friend of ours, Tanisa, and they're doing it's a PFR like after hours creative club. Essentially things
That's
that
awesome.
not necessarily are photography related, but it's more of like a hangout, gives people something to do. A lot of the events are free. The next one that we have coming up is actually going to be Superb Owl photo walk. We wanted to do a photo walk,
awesome.
and we wanted to do a photo walk, and Stacy picked the Super Bowl day because why not? So we'll be doing
the Superb Owl namesake, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love it.
She's going to be not raffling off prizes, but we'll be doing a giveaway of prizes. People have to go around to the local businesses and either stop in and buy something and show a receipt to us to get a raffle ticket, or stop
cool.
and get go to a particular location that we send them out to, and then they get a little owl ticket, and then bring that back, and they get to exchange that for a raffle ticket. So fun little thing, and then we'll raffle off or give away these owl related prizes. So
That's cute.
some
That's
fun
cute.
for the community. And then we've got some more events coming up. There's a camera exchange we have planned for March 12th.
Okay.
So that'll be really awesome. Anybody in the community can participate and bring in photo equipment. It doesn't have to be film. It could be digital. It could be soft boxes. It could be light stands. As long as it's photo related, they can bring that in and offer it up for sale. Going to connect with
Cool.
a couple of the labs and let them know that we're doing that to encourage some traffic to come through.
That's great.
Last time we had one, it was a really popular event. We had a lot of people show up. Unfortunately, it was in the middle of the summer and not too many people came to buy stuff, but there was a lot of people selling. So I anticipate we'll get some good traction this year with that. And then obviously a photo walk tied into that. So and ultimately hangout sort of event. So so some fun events to get the community involved. We've got some more workshops. Color printing. Finally going through with that.
Sweet.
We're ready.
Oh, that was so much fun when we did that, and just so cool. All the fundamentals of black and white printing still apply, but it is just so crazy to see a color image come out, and the fact that it's done in a daylight processing tank. For those who don't know, when you do black and white printing, you're doing it in trays under a safe light, so that like red light that you typically see, so you can watch the print just kind of appear, and you can know pretty quickly if are it's going to be good or going to be this one is going in the trash.
Yep.
With color, it's just this like ultimate reveal at the end, which was the coolest thing. I remember when we did that first print, and you pull the print out of this tube. It's basically with color, it's sensitive to paper because it's color.
Yep.
Sensitive to all the wavelengths of light, so you can't be under that red light. You have to do it in pitch black, which is a whole nother crazy thing.
Oh yeah.
But you put it in this tube after you've made the exposure under the enlarger, and then you go through and process it. You basically pour chemicals on one side, they come out the other. Developer wicks.
Yep. Then a wash.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and then there's this magical reveal at the end where you take the lid off and you pull the print out, and it's like, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just quite a cool experience, especially after the third or fourth hour when we had been messing with it, and we finally got a good color print to come out. We just sat there and awe for a minute.
It's something cool. It's something different. The color printing is just amazing. It's been a while since I've done it. I think I did like 4 sessions of practice, like trial and error, just to comprehend the process a little deeper.
Nice.
But it was kind of crazy because it takes upwards of 4 hours. I did another one with a friend, Dino, and I have actually an example. I'll share that as well. I don't have it here with me, but it's basically the process. You have getting the density right and getting the color balance right. And it's crazy with color printing. It actually shifts. So not all the wavelengths have the same density. So it's not as simple as with black and white, where you have a single channel you're working with, and then you get your exposure right, and then you move away from your exposure into your contrast, and then you're dodging and burning. So it's kind of involved with black and white, but with color, you have to kind of think in 3 dimensions. You have to think in a color space and understand color theory in order to execute a proper print. If it's got too much magenta, you have to add magenta in order to pull that out.
It's definitely a different way of thinking. If you're like me, you're used to only printing in black and white, where you're dealing with, shades of gray, contrast, and this relatively linear relationship between the light, paper, and time, and how it affects, the image. Whereas with color, it's like a complete shift of everything you've been taught in terms of, the same mechanics still apply in terms of like how you physically make the print in the darkroom and
Yeah.
chemical process and etc. But like getting a proper print is just a complete different like shift of just how you do it compared to like a black and white image and the typical relationships that you just kind of come to understand of how the paper works, how the chemistry works, and etc. It's just, I mean, it's learning something new. It's cool. It was very fun.
Yeah, and it's another thing too is the film. If you're using expired film or film that's not developed properly, you'll end up with some weird results, and it's a little bit more challenging to hit that exposure just right and get that color balance just right. So color printing, I mean, that's just it's one of my favorites. It's one of those things where you may not want to produce a ton of stuff in color, a ton of printing. But it's one of those things I like to be able to just mark off the list and say, okay, I've accomplished this. I've messed with this and been able to go from not having a print, but having color film that's been developed and I have a negative, into projecting that onto the paper, developing it, and getting to the point where I have a nice balanced print. So it's definitely a feel good accomplishment once you nail it. So
it is.
Yeah.
It's a cool to see as well. There is that over the last few years, there's been a very large resurgence of film, and you've got everyone on Instagram shooting Portrait 400, which totally fine. I don't want to speak any ill will of the, shoot Portrait 400 exclusively and just post on Instagram. Totally fine. Art is completely subjective, and everyone's workflow is different. But originally, the negative color photography, was more hinted towards printing. That was the only reason you would do it back in the day. You had either black and white, where then you would take and go into the darkroom and print, or you shoot slides. If you remember your grandparents being like, let me show you my slideshow from the Grand Canyon from 1965. Well, it's like, because you had either black and white, or people were shooting Kodachrome, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately.
True.
When negative color film was invented, it was aimed towards like wedding photographers, or like in my stash of photos that my mom gave me, I've actually discovered these 6x7 negatives from like our childhood photo session when we went down to like the portrait studio and got some really nice family portraits done. And those negatives were always meant to be printed. So it is really satisfying to get that full process, full chemical process of there's no digital intermediary involved. There's no scan. There's no anything. You're holding something in your hand that you created. You, other than producing the film itself.
True.
You've basically done everything in the process yourself. You've shot the image, you've developed the image. If you're doing it yourself, then you've printed the image. So it's very satisfying to be able to hold a print in your hand that you have done. That's why I love printing so much. A negative is just the intermediary to the print, which I don't want to say I wish more people would realize, but obviously there's so many barriers to having a darkroom, let alone a color darkroom, that it's not something that everybody can do. Not even everyone who shoots film can do, or everyone who has a darkroom can do color. So I'm working my way towards there.
You'll get there.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about a lab in California, the Cibachrome lab, that still produces Ciba Lab, I think is what it's called. I don't remember.
Ciba-lab. Jumping ahead a little bit, because I do definitely want to talk about the darkroom printing workshops that I've done. But Cibachromes, like you brought up, is a unfortunately discontinued color positive to positive darkroom printing process. The prints are absolutely gorgeous. Oh, and by the way, Acme Camera. I was over there the other day chatting with Jacob, the owner, and I had mentioned that. Oh, by the way, I bought an 8x10. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
And I bought a box. I bought a box of Ektachrome 100.
Crazy.
I sold my soul for it. Oh my gosh! I mean, like, it's crazy. It's crazy how expensive this is. It's like selling an organ per shot. But anyway, I was over at Acme Camera the other day. I'd mentioned that I had bought this box of Ektachrome that I was going to plan to shoot and do some fall color photography on that, as well as a few wildflower photos. I mentioned that I was going to get a few Cibachrome prints done by this lab in California. And he points up on the wall and he's like, hey, that's a Cibachrome print that I got done about 20 years ago. Check it out. And I mean, just an absolutely gorgeous print, high gloss, beautiful color, just great depth. It's just super cool. I'd never actually seen one in person. So that was pretty neat.
Awesome. Yeah, the colors are insane.
Yeah.
I saw somebody had posted up online one time a Cibachrome print, and I mean, I know this was just online seeing the photo, but I could only imagine what it was like seeing it in person. But it was a person in a red dress, and the red was just so vibrant compared to the rest of the image. The cool thing with Cibachrome prints is they're much more archival than RA4 prints. And
really?
Yeah, the process, it's a dye destruction process, so it's a different method in creating the image, and it's, from my understanding, similar to like a carbon print, but not quite the same. Probably the most archival besides carbon printing. Yeah, amazing stuff. But yeah, one of these days, I'm excited to see your work get printed there.
Yeah,
that's going to be awesome.
I'm excited about it too. If a couple of these shots that I plan on taking come out like I intend, I think I'm going to get some really big prints done, like 40 by 50 inches size done. And they're not cheap. I think they're about $600 a print. Woo, to get done.
That's pricey.
Or that's at least for the first one. Maybe there's a deal for, more than one, but I would just get like 2 done of each one.
Yeah.
With the intent to have a show somewhere and sell them, or sell at least, sell one, keep the other.
Right.
But yeah, spendy per print.
Oh,
so, yeah. But, if you can imagine, the super cool thing about shooting 8x10 is you basically got 1,000 megapixel equivalent camera in you. It's 52 times the resolution of 35 millimeters. So the amount of detail you can get is just astonishing. And if these few frames come out like I hope they will in fall, be very happy.
Yeah, I know you're
very happy.
You're very critical of your exposure, making sure you have your exposure right. So that's the big key with any photo, is making sure that you have proper exposure. And it's just that much more critical, shooting 8x10 because it's like betting $100 on roulette and hoping that you get it right.
Pretty much. I mean, at its simplest form, a camera is just a box with a lens on one end and something that holds film or light-sensitive material on the other end. And yeah, with 8x10, you're doing everything yourself. You're setting up the camera, obviously. You've got to focus the image first, and then once you load your film, you can't see what you're going to shoot. So you have to, you really got to make sure that you did it right. Exposure is critical. If you're doing any sort of work close up, you got to have bellows compensation.
Yep.
Due to the inverse square law. I think, if you put double the distance, the light quarters, or something like that. Anyway.
Bunch of math.
You've got to do bellows factor. Thankfully, there's an app for that. And, you've really got to understand the exposure, especially when shooting slide film. It just has such a narrow window of the light that it likes to see. You've got to have just a good understanding of not just the like raw exposure, like what setting should this be at, but what's the temperature of the light? What time of day am I shooting at? Like when 10 sheets cost $250, you really want to make sure that you plan out your shot. So
that's just the film. You gotta get it developed too.
well, yeah, and that's just for the film. It was $244, I believe, for 10 sheets of Ektachrome, and that's before the price is going up 20 to 1,000,000% soon.
Yeah.
So, don't get me started on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for your 8x10. That's definitely not a lot of people shoot 8x10. There's not a lot of people that shoot 4x5, but getting up there, it's a little bit more of a gamble, but it's always fun to see that.
It's cool. It's fun to do. I'm very excited. Wasn't expecting to purchase it, but it was kind of one of those cameras that, the deal presented itself, but it passed it up. I've always wanted one. And, actually compared to the particular 4x5 camera that I have, I mean, since I've gotten it for sure, but I think just overall, I'll see myself using the 8x10 more.
Okay.
One, it's actually a lot lighter than my 4x5. I've got a big old graphic rail 4x5 camera, so it can do crazy movements, can do super macro stuff in the studio, which I'd like to do with this 300 millimeter lens that I got for the 8x10. Get a lens board that'll work with the 4x5, but it's very heavy, it's very bulky. It's it's just a little more finicky to use. There's the 8x10, it folds up, collapses into a backpack, it's super lightweight. And if I'm going to go out there and already spend, even for black and white, 10, 11, $12 a shot, when you consider, buying the film and then, now I'm processing black and white at home for 8x10, but previously was sending it out. I'd just much rather get the larger negative, and you can make contact prints a lot easier. I've been doing that. I've been doing some 8x10 contact prints, which have been great. The amount of detail you can get is just astonishing, even with the contact print. So, if you ever find an 8x10 enlarger, Dan, that needs a new home?
It's funny. We had one, but it ended up going out to Joshua Tree. So hopefully,
right time, right place.
Yeah,
so that's what some of this stuff is. So.
I know exactly where it's at. Unfortunately, probably not being used at the moment, but it may end up in your hands at some point. Well, I'm excited for that. 8x10 is insane at such a large format, and I'm hoping one of these days I'll be able to shoot that. I just shot some 4x5. I'm actually working on a project myself.
Oh yeah, tell me.
So
tell me about that. I saw a little bit about it on Instagram.
Yeah.
But, you've got a couple dozen people lined up.
Yeah. Right? So basically, with my project, I'm trying to photograph people in the community that are kind of like the movers and shakers, business owners, artists, people in the community that are really giving it their all, that are That's out awesome. There, hustling, for lack of a better word. But, that kind of deserve a little bit of recognition. And then also, for them to be documented, with, their existence, the project basically is going to be all on film, and I'm going to be shooting in different formats. My plan eventually will be to have this collection of different people, along with an article that I plan to write up about them, and also interview them. And then there'll be 4x5 medium format, so 6.6, 6.9. And then some 35. Yeah. And, it's going to be mostly geared around portraits, and then, a lot of the medium format, and the 35 millimeter will be it'll kind of get further and further out. So the 35 is going to document probably less personal and more personal at the same time. Like, depends on what it is. So, yeah, that'll be an undertaking for each individual. But right now I'm practicing. I just shot with some of this film that I've been sitting on for a long time. I've been so tied up
What kind
with.
of film was it?
That was a copy film, 4x5 technical copy film. Interesting, definitely interesting film. It's rated at 12 ISO, and it expired in 1986, I believe, 1986.
Wow.
So
Did you get some good results from that? I think I saw a couple of them.
Yeah, I
online.
shot it at I shot it at 6 ISO. I used two giant strobes at full power to balance the scene. And previously I've been shooting on the direct instant positive paper with this portrait booth that Stacey and I have been doing at different events. And so I kind of pulled that same rating essentially and shot this film the same way. So it's I only pushed it one stop in the exposure, and then I added an extra 30 seconds in the developing. So HC 110 dilution E, which is actually 1:47, so 48 parts, I guess, total. So the dilution's a little different than what I'm used to. But
was that a recommendation that you found from some other folks who had processed this film before, or was that was that just your intuition?
Just my intuition with just kind of experimenting. I had no idea if this was going to be fogged. I had no idea if it was going to come out. The emulsion was just going to rub right off when I went to develop it. It was kind of interesting, and it's an orthochromatic film, so.
So it's not red sensitive then.
Yeah, you can actually develop it under red light, which
that's cool.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of tray processing just because I haven't before, so I don't want to do that. I have the equipment to do tank processing. I have a Jobo 6 sheet 4x5 developing tank, so I use that. But yeah, really crazy. I was blown away with the results. I feel like it was slightly underexposed based on the results that I was seeing. Not really too much that I could do to compensate for that, other than to maybe push the development a little bit further, which I'll probably do. But
do you think you would try, like, I know the dilution B is super popular.
Yeah.
Do you think like a higher concentration would maybe
possibly
as well? Or
you know what? Now that I think about it, this dilution was actually more concentrated. The dilution I was thinking of was it? I don't know. I forget what it was I was doing. I might use
so many letters.
Yeah, so the dilution A, B, C. Yeah, I forget. I feel like it was more concentrated, but I might experiment with that. I only have 50 sheets. Only 50 sheets.
I mean, but you say only 50 sheets, and I know some folks listening might be like, "Oh my God, 50 sheets, that's so much." But no, not really. It's not.
It's easy to go through that really quick. It'll be interesting, but I'm definitely going to shoot more with it. I noticed that the emulsion started to kind of rub off.
Interesting.
So definitely a delicate emulsion on this stock. Probably not going to use photo flow on this because I didn't notice any sort of issue with the emulsion until after I put it through the photo flow. So I don't know if the photo flow is actually affecting it or not, but I'll be a little bit more delicate with that process. And
just better safe than sorry.
Yeah, use distilled water through and through with that process.
That's good.
And but the results are insane. Based off of just looking at the film to begin with, I haven't seen black and white film look this crisp. And
Wow.
the grain is just insanely sharp.
Huh.
But I left it up to hang and dry. It wasn't quite finished by the time I headed home today. So
That's
I'm
cool.
gonna make a print and see how that looks. Hopefully here
Nice.
pretty soon. Probably this week at some point.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm that's super cool to see the old results or see results from film that old.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I did an experiment yesterday. Oh, excuse me. Which I won't get the results back till either Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe. Um, as part of this 8x10 deal, it came with a bunch of film. And one of the boxes was a about 30-year-old expired Ektachrome duplicating film. Box 25 sheets of 8x10 Ektachrome duplicating film. Now, through my research, people seem to rate it somewhere between ISO 6 and 12. So I exposed 2 frames of that yesterday up by the Capitol, the Utah State Capitol. Did one at ISO 6 and one I made at ISO 12. I also think it's tungsten balanced film, so I shot it during broad daylight. So we'll see what happens there.
Interesting.
But this was more just like a proof of concept, like, can I get an image out of it? So I'll drop it off to Nichols on Tuesday. Tomorrow's a holiday, so I don't believe they're open. And
Yeah.
see what I get. So
Fingers crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed. Because that stuff was essentially free. And if
Oh
that
man.
comes out, like if I get an image there, then now I'm going to go down the rabbit hole of, okay, what kind of weird filter do I have to run on the front of my lens so I can shoot this during daytime, or
Right.
how does it look under strobes? So
Yeah.
uh,
Hopefully
circling
not
back,
fogged.
hopefully not fog. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
I think that guy Grainy Days on YouTube, he shot some old Ektachrome duplicating film, and I mean, it came out looking like garbage. So I have no expectations for this. So we'll see how it works.
Might as well shoot it, find
But
out.
yeah, but
Cool.
circling back just to the darkroom for a second, I just did want to
Yeah.
just mention something else. I know that you've been running a ton of workshops as well, and all throughout time, since you've started, community engagement was a really big thing that you wanted to bring to the darkroom, which is, it's what drew me in.
Yeah.
So taking from your kind of or inspired by you, I've actually started doing some
Nice.
darkroom printing workshops. I've had 7 people in so far
Awesome.
from the community here to learn how to print. I've been charging a small amount, just cover paper and chemistry and stuff like that, and it's been really great to share my knowledge and show some folks who have only ever done the shoot, have a lab, scan it, get the files, and post them to Instagram. It's been pretty fun to show them, hey, this is actually the end results that you can get. And it's really cool to be able to see that. You make a print, you see it just develop, and just basically appear out of nothing in the developer. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
And my good friend Justin, who works at Acme Camera, he came and he was one of the first ones, came on by, took one of the classes, and then the next day, he's like, David, I bought an enlarger for my bathroom.
That's how it happens.
This is how it starts. This
Yeah.
is how it starts. So
That's good. Yeah. You said 7 people so far. How's the engagement? Everybody seems to be engaged with it.
Yeah. And how I've been running them is I've just been doing them one person at a time, or the last one that I did, I actually had 2 people over, which was great.
Cool.
Having 2 enlargers up and running, calibrated, be able to go is nice. So, I can have up to 2 people in here, but yeah, folks have been really engaged. Everyone who's come by, I think, has really enjoyed their time. I mean, I'm not charging an astronomical amount of money, but I'm charging enough where if you're going to come by and do this, you're going to pay attention. And
Yeah.
also, if you're not cool, you're not coming by. So
Yeah. Fair enough.
but no, it's been great. And kind of how I've been structuring them is I've actually just been teaching everybody how to split filter print. I've just been jumping right to that. I don't allow RC paper in here. It's fiber only. So, if you're going to learn, it's going to be on an archival process. And for most prints, at least when working with variable, grade paper, I prefer to split filter print. Just personally, I think it lets you get the most tonal range out of a print and lets you control it.
Yeah.
Not every print needs to have crisp highlights and deep dark blacks, but that's usually where I like to start. And then, you can make your adjustments from there. And really, when I am printing on multi-grade paper, I say actually, yeah, most of my prints, I do like to have a lot of contrast, a nice crisp highlight, and nice deep dark black, and good tonal range all throughout. But I've been basically teaching folks, I've been demonstrating how to make a print, showing them the whole process, and then they will take over. I'll walk them through the process as well, trying to avoid mistakes, mostly in chemistry. Just showing folks how it's done, and then people really seem to pick it up pretty quickly. Most of these folks who come on in, like, they know how to take a good photo, so it's really just about teaching them the fundamentals of hey, how does exposure work in relation to the paper and the darkroom versus how does it work when you're taking the picture. So people pick it up pretty quick.
Yeah. And what I tell people too is that being able to print and learning that process makes you a better photographer. You get to you get to see what your image is going to look like that you had shot, you had developed, and then you have printed without any sort of cheat in between. A scanner is going to do an automatic scan, and it's going to take whatever it can get and create, compensate and give you the best exposure. So it gives you an idea that you or basically points out your exposure or your errors or your mistakes. And that's pretty much the only way to improve your flow and your understanding of it is to recognize those and then move past that and get better. So that's awesome that you're getting the community engaged. I'm like, yay,
Thanks.
we need more dark rooms.
It's cool. There's a couple other, cool folks that I've met here as well. There's a guy who's coming on by tomorrow, actually. He does tintypes here locally.
Rad.
And his name is Brett. Super cool guy. Just kind of met him through the community. And he wants to make, I think we're going to do some sort of trade for some darkroom time. And
nice.
He's going to come by and do some printing. And then he's going to take my tintype and give me a rundown of how that works. That'll be pretty cool.
Awesome.
And yeah, just a lot of fun community here.
Good.
A lot of fun community.
Good.
But I know that we talked a little bit about exposure and slide film.
Yes.
Do you want to see a couple cool pictures that I prepared for our discussion?
let's see them. Let's see the photos.
All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Give me just a second. Elevator music, please. All right, here we go. Zoom technology. Here we go. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes. Tell me.
All right, so
tell me, oh wise one, your ways.
Cool. So I wanted to show 3 photos that I had taken this past fall. Each of these photos were taken on my Bronica SQ. I used 3 different lenses for each one of these photos. They're all taken on Velvia 50 slide film. Let's see. Bought the film from the Fine Lab. Nichols Photo processed the film. Then I scanned the film. So just to set the ground rules there.
Fair enough.
So, yes, starting with this first photo, these 3 were all taken right here in Utah, about less than an hour from my house. There's just a ton of fall color, so accessible. And I went out a few times. This photo was taken on the Mount Nebo Loop, which is a pretty well-known scenic drive here in Utah. This was taken, like I said, with my Bronica SQ and my 250 millimeter f5.6 lens. Pretty long lens on on medium format, but really lets you find that scene within a larger scene, like I did here.
Yeah.
And I just love the way that the vertical aspens were sort of framed by the few different layers of trees in front. So it just creates kind of a nice sort of some geometric lines and shapes going on here. So really like this image. Was a hard scene to meter though, Dan. I will tell you that.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah. I actually took, I think 3 or 4 images here at a few different exposures. I was using my Canon 5DS and its built-in spot meter to help out here. But with such a tight scene and with the dark aspens in the background and the lit aspens in the foreground, it was definitely a hard scene to meter here and get right. I think I had finally just decided on, I'd looked at what the highlights were, looked at what the shadows were, met in the middle, and then made a couple exposures on each side of that just to make sure that I got the final image the way that I saw it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, that's
So
definitely tricky
cool
with
frame.
the tricky with that the highlights of those yellows, and then you also have like all that shadow where the trees come up, and you see most of the white from the bark. So definitely tricky to get that nailed just right with that exposure, but you pulled it off on that one.
Yeah, this one was tricky. It was a tricky composition. A tricky scene to meter. The light was changing pretty quickly that morning. This was probably taken at say about 8 a.m. or so. The sun rising from the east, over on the left there, kind of highlighting the tops of the trees. Morning light is really nice to photograph aspens and the fall with. You get that they're almost backlit or kind of lit right from the side.
Yeah.
As the sun kind of crests over that ridge and lights up just the top of them, then you get a lot of that nice, like dynamic light and the shadows of those aspens in the background, sort of all kind of falling away.
Yeah.
Behind the that first row or first few rows that are exposed. So
Nice. Well done.
that's what's nice. Thank you. That's what's nice about a telephoto lens like that is you can really find that tighter composition within a larger scene. So that I think when shooting with the wide angle lens, sometimes you can miss those. So
Yeah, I like the feel of that with it's almost like a Where's Waldo sort of feel. It's so flat because of that the length on there. But
yeah.
it's like layers. It's different than a lot of the photography you typically see. But I like that flattened sort of feel with that image. Definitely an awesome shot.
Thank you. Yeah, that extra compression that you get from the telephoto lens of making the foreground and background elements, seem closer to each other than they, appear.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think works in my favor with this image with the different layers. And then also coming in clutch is mirror lockup mode. The Bronica has quite the mirror slap, and with that 250 millimeter, it's a really slow lens at f5.6. I think I was stopped down pretty significantly for this one, maybe like f22 or something. So my exposure was quite long. I mean, Velvia 50 is not very sensitive film, ISO 50, and if you're shooting at f22 in this kind of light, you're don't remember what the exposure was in particular, but maybe at least a second or so, to get that. Because what you've got to watch out for with a medium format camera with the lens that long is even that foreground ridge, if you're not stopped down, that's still going to be out of focus. So,
and can be distracting as we're Typically it's, you're trying to get that focus to a certain point and have that stand out. But
Yeah.
in this case, you definitely want the kind of everything to be in focus in a shot like this.
Yep. Yeah. When you're just when you want to capture all those different layers. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, the second image that I want to talk about is another aspen shot. Who would have guessed? And this was taken in a part of Utah. It's over in the Wasatch State Park, I believe, over by Little Deer Creek Campground. Again, morning backlit aspens. This is on a different day. A little bit later in the season, maybe this was maybe about a week or two past the second photo. So the aspens are much more yellow. You can still see there's a little bit of green on the tops of them there, but for the most part, they're yellow. So, excuse me. This photo again was taken on my Bronica SQ, the LV50. This was taken with the 150 millimeter f3.5. So still a lens with a decent reach, allows you to, frame in on your composition. Good landscape lens, but not as tight, and just give you a little bit more room with a wider aperture if you need it. F3.5 versus f5.6 for the other lens.
Yeah.
So in terms of metering, this was a very difficult scene to meter. It may not come over on zoom, but this kind of the darkness in the background there, that's actually a ridge that is behind all of these aspens that is blocking the sun. So this was again taken in the morning at about 8 a.m. The sun had just crested over this ridge, and it was lighting up the valley below, but the ridge was still in shadow. So giving this really ultra high contrast scene. From the scan, I have not bumped the contrast or edited this image. The slide is just this vibrant.
Wow.
And just that really crisp morning backlit sun does that. If this shot was taken at 4 p.m., it would be a completely different vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would not have that same kind of just feel where it almost looks like the aspens are jumping off the slide.
Yeah, it's so vibrant.
So again,
great.
a very difficult scene to meter on this one. I really rely heavily on my Canon 5DS and its built-in spot meter. I'd love to get a dedicated spot meter, but for now I'm just using that.
Yeah.
And just really, looking at the highlights, just trying to get a good meter reading on the grass, trying to get a good meter reading on the aspen bark, because that's really what I was focused on for this image. I didn't really care about the background necessarily. I just wanted it to be dark.
Yeah.
So my main focus was on the aspens. And took a few photos here with different focal lengths. I ended up with the 150 because any wider and the top of the ridge, you would be able to start to see was coming in with the light. So I wanted to keep the framing a little tighter. And then I tried to throw in the 250 millimeter and just was too tight. You couldn't get the full height of the aspen. So I ended up with the 150 and this shot. So this one right here, this exact photo, I want to retake on 8x10 in the fall.
Nice.
So, nice horizontal composition.
Yeah.
May not end up with this exact same scene necessarily because the lens I have for the 8x10 is much wider than this would be.
Right.
But we'll see. We'll see how it looks.
Yeah, that's that. I just love that yellow and the green. It's just really vibrant with this shot. And if you know film, you can definitely tell this is slide film because of that. It just pops so much. Love that contrast too. It just separates that from the background. It's almost like it kind of gives that feel like it was shot at night. Almost,
yeah,
where you have like a single light that's illuminating just the trees and the background is like just black, kind of like the same feel that you get with a black and white photo when you shoot with with a red filter, and all the blue disappears, so the sky's black and the clouds are white, and then so it kind of has that same sort of feel with this, but definitely like that.
Yeah, just that extreme contrast is something that you can kind of play into with slide film. You know, Velvia 50 especially has such a narrow dynamic range. You know, only 5 or 6 stops maybe of usable dynamic range, and I mean if you overexpose it, forget about it. So you really have to like know the film, and that's where slide film differs a lot from color negative film. Is you can get away for days with. I mean, you hear all the time people like, oh yeah, shoot Portra 400 one stop overexposed, to get those creamy highlights and pastel colors, which is true. Yeah. But the films react totally differently to light and to the scene that it's presented. There's no tweaking the colors in scanning or anything like that with slide film. I mean, you can edit them to your heart's content, but if you want to, like what I do, have a as close of a representation digitally as possible as I can to the slide. That's at least my goal when I scan.
Right.
You got to make sure you get it right in camera, which just briefly brings me to, like one of the main reasons why I shoot film. I joke it's, the expense, inconvenience, and the delayed gratification, but it's more so it forces you to make all of your creative choices when you take the picture. There's, really not, at least with the slide film. Yeah. There's really not much you can do after the fact. You can push pull, it's set, like that, but you really got to choose all of your settings, everything you want the image to be, and including finding the best light. Without good light, there isn't a good photograph. So,
right.
Anyway, that's this image. Really like this one.
I take that. Awesome. This one's
and
fun.
Then the last image that I wanted to talk about here. So again, another Aspen photo. This is a much wider shot. This was shot with my 50 millimeter f3.5 on the Bronica SQ. And compositionally, this one was a challenge. I wanted to make sure that I could get some grass at the bottom, as well as the full height of the couple of more centrally framed aspens in there. So cue about time lapse and me crawling around on the ground for about 20 minutes, sealing with the waist level viewfinder and trying to find a good composition. And ultimately ended up with this image. Again, a tricky one to meter. I was mainly concerned with the yellow on the aspens. I knew just based on how the film reacts that if I metered properly for the aspens, that the sky would be a little underexposed and would kind of be darker, giving it like a really nice bumping contrast, which is what it did. So I was, just concerned about, basically metering for the aspens. Wanted to make sure that the ground still had some good detail, and wanted to make sure that everything was in focus. So again, utilize that mirror lockup mode on the Bronica, shooting at f22 for, I believe this one was it was either a 4 or 8 second exposure, because 8 seconds is the longest I can go without needing a cable release.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So on the Bronica. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I got everything in focus, from every little blade of grass to, the leaves all the way at the top of the tree there. So really happy with this image. I was taken either the day after or the day before the previous image. So right around that same time out in the mountains just east of us.
Awesome. Yeah, that color is just, I like the balance too. You have the blue of the sky isn't too dark. It's not too bright. The white of the aspens isn't blown out too much. There's a few spots, but especially when shooting with slides, it's tricky to get it just, to get that range. But you got the grass, you got the trees, the whole tree, and you got the sky in there too, which just awesome. I dig that. That'd make a really good print.
I'm I'm really happy with this one. I'd love to take a similar frame with the 8x10 in the same spot, but I just don't think I have a wide enough lens for that to be able to capture this similar image at least right now. Maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig it. Yeah, thanks for sharing your work on that. Awesome shots. Slide's always a challenge, but I know you love getting that exposure just right.
Yep. I mean, it is key, especially with slide film. Color film. Not that it's a crutch, but it does make metering just a lot easier. To know that you have that highlight latitude to be able to push the film and more kind of like shoot quickly rather than with slide film, especially medium format and then large format even too. You've got a limited amount of frames. Medium format square, you've only got 12 frames per roll, so you've got to make them all count. Versus if you've got 36, so you can kind of get a little bit more experimental. So just my only recommendations when shooting slide film is just to really pay attention to metering and just to pay attention to that like pre-visualization of how do you want the image to appear, and just knowing enough to be able to translate that, what you see in front of you, what the light you see, to what you want the image to look like on the film. So just
it's a lot of work, but
get a good, you
pull it off.
And then, when you get those results back, like, metering with slide film is difficult, but when you get those results back and you just look at them on the light table, it's amazing. I'll say, anyone who has never shot slide film before, I know it's expensive, but I would just highly encourage you to pick up a couple rolls. Some Ektachrome, some Fuji, anything you can get your hands on that'll give you a color positive image, and just shoot it and just be in awe when you look at the images on the light table. It's really, really cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you can be like your grandparents, and then in the future you can be like, tell your kids, oh hey, come look at my slides, and you can project them on the wall. So
for what and see the color that you saw, not what was translated either into print or into a scan. That's awesome stuff. So
Dan, that's been just great chatting with you. Great to catch up. I wish you absolutely the best with the lab in Phoenix. I know that you and Stacy have got a ton going on, which is great to see. And it's only up from here. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, David. Appreciate you joining us. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, we will.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
All right.